track the impact of the idea versus the original estimate to validate any award given. The selectmen would have final decision on the ideas recommended for acceptance, the category it was eligible for, and the amount of the reward to be authorized. So again, this is not a slick, sophisticated system, but it's a first start. And if it works and people know that if they have ideas that may be a little zany, they can bring them forward, it just may be, a double off the wall, who knows.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Before I get into the select board considerations, I don't want to lose my thanking of Bob and Rich for all their work. I mean, they did a tremendous amount of work. Bob put together all these documents, the books, the zip drives. I was going to take credit for it, but he's in the room, so I can't. Tremendous amount of work. Tremendous amount of work. So again, before this goes on, and I fail to thank them, I really do. It's a lot of work and a good result.
Yeah, I just would add to what Tom's saying. This probably should have been entitled "What We Did with Our Summer Vacation." But I think the three of us were pretty consistent about going to the meetings and following up, as several of you are aware. And I just want to add to what Tom said. Bob did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of wage and salary surveys. I mean, everybody participated in contacting individually a subset of towns and gathering the information. But Bob kind of synthesized all this and pulled it together into spreadsheets and pulled together the final packages for the presentation. So I'd like to publicly acknowledge the significant role he played in making this all come together.
All right, enough of the suck up. Let's get back to that. No, seriously, he did a lot of work. He really did. All right, the considerations. The following considerations were prepared for the select board, were generated through our conversations with all the towns we contacted of similar size, culture, and concerns. Our desire is to better inform the select board so they might institute policies, procedures, and actions that help ensure maximum budget control, productivity, and employee performance satisfaction. They are, first, the use of a complete employee review system that includes updated job descriptions, a performance review process that includes establishing performance expectations, and a once-a-year performance review comparing expectations with actual performance. 2, the use of a computerized or manual time clock punch-in, punch-out system to record time work. Only the employees would be permitted to punch in or sign out via their password. 3, use of a revised policy and procedure manual, the example is there, to better clarify the expectations and the do's and don'ts of working for the town. Number 4, use of an electronic scheduling system to better plan activities and the ability of the selectmen or their designee to understand and supervise the work being planned and done. Number 5, use of a computerized system for tracking for truck maintenance and for tracking. This would allow for better scheduling and tracking of preventive maintenance of vehicles and an opportunity for selectmen or their designee to understand where the trucks are at any one time and to sync that up with the scheduling system. Number 6, review the summer and winter schedule for town employees. Other towns have questioned the 4-day work as an inconvenience to all citizens while it benefits a few workers. There's a feeling that a 6 a.m. start does not allow road crews to start work near any homes as it is disruptive to the citizens. We suggest that the town provide all supervisory employees performance review training so they understand how to do these reviews and how to do the performance expectation side. To Bob's point, consider participating in the 2016 New Hampshire Municipal Biannual Wage and Benefits Survey. So we're a part of that group next year. Consider meeting with towns surrounding towns, select boards once a month to discuss issues pertinent to those towns. Issues that have already been dealt with by a town would reduce the learning curve for all the other ones. This practice could lead to cooperative and collaborative arrangements that would benefit all towns. And last but not least, and probably our most ardent consideration would be to seriously consider the hiring of a town administrator to negotiate, monitor, and supervise all purchasing, contract, legal issues, and oversee the operations of all departments. A slight reorganization of the current staff could provide most of the funds required to employ this quality individual. Russ Bolin, who's a Lindenborough town administrator, is willing to come and meet with the select board to talk about his role in that town and what impact he's had on their operating systems, on their financial outcomes. He's actually going to Wilton, has gone to Wilton to do the same thing, because again, there's interest in something like that. It has always been my position in running businesses that if you don't have a dedicated champion that gets up every morning and goes to bed every night thinking about how he's going to make that work, you don't get the best result. So if we were to find someone who could come in and do the day-to-day stuff, our select board would still direct that person's activities, but they would do the day-to-day work needed to make your jobs easier and to make us perform better. Again, I want to thank the two guys that I work with most closely on doing this. This was a labor of love, but now we're asking for a divorce.
I would add one thing too. I spent a great deal of time talking to Russ Bolin, who's and he's a professional, essentially, and I would strongly suggest that you take him up on his offer to come down and give a presentation, because from a business perspective, he ran through all of the things that he looked at and made a pretty strong case, and I'm sure will make the case to the select board that that position more than pays for itself. And the rationale is look, the select board's in small town. Now, surprisingly, Lindenborough is a smaller town than us. Surprisingly, there are, in that group of towns that we looked at, that isn't the one-off case where they have a town administrator. There are several small towns that have a town administrator. And what he pointed out in terms of places where you save money, and that's administering grants. So select board, and you guys know it better than anybody else, but you have jobs, and you don't have the time to look in detail at a lot of the issues that come before you. So if you got the right individual, you'd have somebody that could write grants, administer the HR policies, actually do the budget, do all of the background work on budget preparation. Almost every place that you look at things like health insurance contracts, look at some of the issues that certainly I ran across when I was on the planning board, things like as mundane as looking at performance bonds.
Right.
This is it was an eye-opener to me that almost nobody in this town knew what the hell a performance bond was, or how to write one, or how to read one. And surprisingly, not anybody in the local banks knew how to draw one of those up correctly. So there are a whole host of, as I think all of us, when we looked at it as people that have probably 90 years of experience in different business entities, that kind of a position makes sense in terms of dollars and cents,
right,
and efficiencies and everything else, and would take the bulk of the burden off of the select board, so that you actually would be dealing with executive decisions instead of having to get down into a lot of weeds, but you don't have time for it anyhow.
right.
So I think, as I said, we put in a copy of his email where he graciously said he was willing to take the time to come down here and do a detailed presentation, and he basically laid out for me that said his job is every year to justify more than what they're paying him in terms of benefits of the town.
Right.
So if you hired somebody in that capacity, you could do it on a contract basis. When he wasn't performing, get somebody else.
I would just like to bring up one thing. It's not Lindenborough, it's Lindenborough.
I was thinking Lindenborough.
We should know how to say the name of the town.
Well, I guess that was brought to my attention when I first moved to Alstead. I wasn't quick enough to say, I almost get that wrong. And so, we'd like to present you with the findings.
A hard copy is on.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, you guys ready for questions?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I'm going to start at the end because it seemed like you were maybe a little trepidatious to insinuate that perhaps the selectmen did not have their finger on the pulse of everything that goes on in this town every day from 6 a.m. till 5 p.m. or whatever.
Was that too subtle?
I, for one, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think it's a great recommendation that I'm all in favor of pursuing. I think that's something that it surprised me to hear, and I've heard like little wisps of information coming out of your group. The town's even smaller than us that have these people in these positions, and if it can be financially justified through efficiency and things like that, then why wouldn't we look at that?
Well, I think that's the key to it. Before you would even, and I would dare to say that of the 3 people on this committee, 4 people, I would characterize all of us as fiscal conservatives.
Sure.
And business people by background. And I would say, you take a hard look at it and you convince yourself that, and you measure it, and you make sure that, again, it requires finding the right person. Now, surprisingly, and it's probably no surprise to anybody in this room, all of these small towns have people that have retired up here that have, a lot of them have professional backgrounds. A good example, one of the towns, and I think it might have been Lyme, they have I think an ambulance corps, EMTs, and they don't pay them anything. They say, yeah, we're really lucky. We have a lot of retired doctors or doctors that are practicing, and all these guys are eminently qualified, and they all volunteer on the ambulance. And so what we found in a lot of these towns is you probably have a source of vastly underutilized talent, a talent pool that you don't even realize you have in terms of people with the requisite kinds of backgrounds that might even be candidates for that kind of work.
Okay, a couple other questions. You talked about reviewing job descriptions. Was there a recommendation, or is there a recommendation in the book on how often job descriptions should be reviewed? Did you say every?
We said I think annually, and then and where you pick up where you would pick up changes in jobs is by the performance review process, where somebody who's doing the job actually says, my job's changed in the last year. You guys have laid on, I'm doing additional this and that, and it's not in the job description. And that's your first indicator that you probably need to take a hard look at, is the job description fit what the individual is doing? And so the best source of it is actually the person doing the job. And once you get on the same page in terms of what the requirements are and what he's actually doing, you find that that's a process that is kind of self-correcting on a regular basis.
Gotcha.
I mean, one of the things, again, going back to job descriptions, in my career, I used to write job descriptions that were based on what the person was doing, and a supervisor of mine said, well, no. You got to write down what you want them to do, and then task them to do it. So I don't know which that is here, but job descriptions need to be laid out as to what we need a truck driver to do, or what we need an administrator to do, or what we need a heavy operator to do, and then expect that of them and train them if they don't have that skill to do that, so that the wage we pay them and the wage we compare them against in other towns are comparable. So, you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, and that doesn't mean that job descriptions are purely driven from top down. They involve a collaborative effort,
No,
the supervisor with the employee.
Absolutely.
But once it's agreed upon, this is what we expect you to do.
Right.
And this is what we've
and this is what we're going to measure you against.
Yes.
And you should measure yourself against it.
Exactly.
The process gets everybody on the same page.
Exactly.
It forces the issue, so there isn't any misunderstanding. Well, Jesus, you never told me that.
It's not my job.
Yeah, it wasn't my job.
It is. We'll wait for Rich.
tilt this.
Figure out his.
Yeah, in the template, its actual description is signed by both the employee and the
Right.
supervisor, and then reviewed by the select board. That we have that.
Yes. Next question. When we talk about the benefits comparison, there were percentages laid out, and maybe I heard utilization, which I tend to think of in insurance terms as either how many people are utilizing the.
If I did use utilization, it's incorrect.
I've had a really long day, Bob. That problem is in my head. But the 87%, for example, under health insurance, that refers to how much the town is paying.
That's the percentage,
Thank
that's
you.
right. That's
Okay.
a percentage of the premium that the town absorbs.
Excellent.
Geez, you caught me one questions.
Hold on. Took notes. Can't read them. Move on to the next one. Let's see if reviews, I think you answered that question. When we discussed FSLA and our existing positions, did you come across any like obvious gotchas or obvious gotchas like, holy cow, this guy's being paid salary, but
Well, you know, it's interesting. If you look at the front of that book, let's flip it over, the big manual, and you'll see just open it up. Just open it up. On the left-hand side there, you'll see an organization called DLR, the Business and Labor Reports. Normally and the reason I mention that is there's a seminar that someone could be assigned to go to, which creates a wage scale. Okay. I won't go into all of it, but there's a min and there's a max, and it's done in grades, and a person would move up according to a whole bunch of different criteria. Again, we don't have a wage scale here at all. Now, for 8 or 9 full-time people, do you want to have one? I'm not sure. But if you do, there would be an example of a seminar we could attend and learn how to do it.
In fact, a couple of towns, Lyme or
Yeah, some do have it.
an actual defined wage scale.
have a wage scale that tries to take into account, in some cases, longevity in a position and some other things that allow flexibility.
Okay. I made a note here, you said the employee handbook hasn't been reviewed since 2002. My immediate thought was, hey, we got it done this century. So the other thing was the review process that had been proposed, and this is kind of a question regarding the other towns. It seemed kind of one way, and maybe it's just been the last couple jobs I've had with corporations. It's been more of this thing where I'm the employee, so I do my review first, and then I forward it on to my supervisor who looks at what I think and makes adjustments. Did you see any sort of that sort of
No,
iterative
they weren't
process?
offered up that way, but
Okay.
that is, I won't say a new way because it's 20 years old.
Right.
Okay, with the employee, you hand it to the employee and say, okay, evaluate yourself. However, there are goals and objectives,
Yeah, that's the
okay,
key.
pre-established. So against these 5, 6, whatever it is items, rate yourself and why.
Gosh.
Get that back to the supervisor who will then do his, and then the two of them get together. And they have a meeting of the mind, okay? Now, that's not the way it goes. Now, that's a little bit more sophisticated, but since you don't do anything, you select, well, this is, the Linden, what's the name? Lineborough. I'm following his lead. It's a simple system, but because it's a checkoff, okay, 1 to 5 in each of these, how many other categories, add up the numbers and it comes out, and you look at a grading system, and the grades broken down into sections. Each of those sections would refer then to a percentage increase range. Okay, now, we don't have ranges. So, you have to kind of adapt it. So if you do go to a performance review system, it might not be a bad idea to try to do a wage scale. But you have only 8 people, 8 or 9 people, so.
I guess the other key to this is that training on how to use that kind of a system. Otherwise, it
Probably
gets
a little bit more.
Well, there's a
it
couple
gets
of
kind of
reasons.
contentious if people
Yeah.
aren't handling this.
Yeah, supervisors that do bad reviews, we have never been trained to do reviews, and that becomes a liability for the town.
Right.
Okay, so
Because they
want
say
to have
things they
training.
shouldn't be saying, and they,
Right.
Okay. But either way, this is a really, really good start. And that's all the questions I have. Do you have anything? You've been going to these meetings.
I've read them, but I can say that these three guys, they've done an enormous amount of work.
I would wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much. You know,
If either, if in front of the AABC, I know there were some representatives here tonight, but if you would like, I'd be happy to attend, when I'm here, and I'm sure Rich would too. We haven't discussed this. Tom's leaving in 10 days, so you only got him for a short period of time.
I think it's good to pass that offer on to them. You guys have given us a list of recommendations, and I think we'll need to, at least I'll need to work through the detail. I got the summary, it's good. And then we'll need to start.
Yeah, on your stick, there's another page under wages, which is all of the towns and how we got to where we are. In other words, it's the worksheet. I didn't put it in here, but it's in there.
No problem.
So you'll have that.
Do you have any issues with perhaps this summary document being available on the web in case anyone here would like to review it?
All of this stuff's public.
we're on
Yeah.
public TV.
So if I can extract it from what's on the disk and everything, I'll try to put the full text of this up on the web, and if anybody wants to check it out, I encourage them to do so.
But these are suggestions,
Understand?
not recommendations. You do it with this information, what you feel is in the best interest of the town and what they're capable of. To try to embrace all this and do it in one fell swoop would be overwhelming.
All this will not be done by the end of the
Right,
month.
so you look at it and you say, which is the most important, what do we do first, and you know how to do it, but, right, just prioritize it.
Absolutely. But I think it's really good information to get out there to see what you guys have put together, and I know there's always a lot of questions about, well, we pay this guy way too much, and I think you're going to find people will see that.
I was
We're kinda
surprised
really
how
right
close
in
we
line.
are.
Yeah.
Because, a wage scale, generally the spread is 50 to 70% from bottom to top, right?
Yeah.
Using a midpoint at, say, 35%, and we're close. We're really close.
It all kind of came up organically in all these different towns,
Yeah,
and they
I
ended up
was
doing
surprised.
basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's good.
There was a very interesting, and I just saw this out for the budget committees. One of the towns, the way they compensated, they didn't use a call-out fee for the fire department, so they budgeted a certain amount of money at the beginning, a pool of money to compensate people for, and then the chief, I guess, kept track of, used a point system that said, you get so many points for showing up for a meeting, you get so many points for going to a fire, and then at the end of the year, looked at the points and used that as the basis for dividing up the set pool of money that they had budgeted, as opposed to paying, that way they had some budget certainty on the front end of it, and it also seemed, they said it's worked fairly well because fairly objective. Everybody understands what the system is. You show up for a fire, you get so many points for that. At the end of the year, look at the total points and then divide up the pool of money according to who was participating in the various, training, meetings, fires, call-outs, whatever.
And pay it out about 2 weeks before Christmas.
Well, I didn't get into the specifics on that, but as I said, it provided, then, you weren't guessing on the budget number. You set the pool of money, it was there, and you used it.
Excellent.
Oh, and if you want to follow up on, I'll be glad to serve as the contact point for Russ Boland, who, try to set up when it's convenient if you want to have him come down and do a detailed presentation.
Well, I think we could do that outside of a selectmen's meeting. That's just a meeting with somebody else. Receive some information. I would welcome that.
Definitely.
Yeah, so let me know. I think he was extremely gracious in offering to do that.
There's no obligation, he
Yeah.
just thinks it's a wise thing to look into. That's,
I think the budget committee might want to be involved in that too.
Well, we'll find out. I think just having a meeting between the selectmen to talk about how the process works first. If it should go any further than that, then absolutely there would be budgetary issues that would involve you guys. But for us just to set up a meeting to talk to somebody, I think we can do that the first round. But I agree, something you guys should be involved in.
Is that a position that the selectmen can just go ahead and hire somebody to do that, or does the voters get a say in it? Or?
There's going to be,
It has to be voted on.
in managing the credential,
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
we could,
Budgeted for it.
yeah, if money's in the budget, we could hire somebody new to plow snow. We could hire additional help for our administration.
On a contract basis, it is.
Yeah, it's similar to hiring a consultant or hiring.
Now, with that said, I think that would be the completely worst way to go about doing it.
Yeah, probably.
I think what we'd really like to do is talk to Russ and anybody else we can, put together some, a real document of the pros and cons of going with this approach, the results we would expect to see, and then it would be something we would want to present at a meeting such as this, or maybe even a special meeting to just say, this is a fairly sizable departure from how the town has operated in the past. And I think a lot of people might want to weigh in on that.
What Russ did say is that several of the towns he meets regularly, and this is one of the suggestions that the select board meet with other selectmen. Again, that's a drain on your time. And what he said is 2-3 times a month they get together as a small group informally, talk about issues that come up in the various towns, look at what they're doing from, one of the big things they're doing is, for example, cooperating on fuel purchases. Several of the towns in that area have cooperated on pulling what their requirements are on fuel. Yeah, there are any number of different areas where there's real money in having somebody specifically look at, let's say contracts, bids. I could generate a list here as long as my arm of places that I think there's money in by having somebody focused on looking at things.
Absolutely.
Well, we're doing it with the school, yeah, but
I think one of the bigger issues might be just change itself.
Yeah.
The culture, all cultures, business or towns or whatever, they don't like change. And they're frightened of change, they're concerned about change. So I think the more dialogue that we had about the impact of it, what it means, what it can be, what it can't be, people just get more comfortable with it and then eventually embrace it. But change is different in a culture that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and the town has operated basically, it hasn't changed much since I've been here, and that hasn't been that long, but I kind of get the feeling that it hasn't changed in quite some time.
So I've been here 40-something years up in the lake and 15 full-time, and it operates, it's a wonderful town.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't, progressed or embraced some of these other concepts.
That's all right.
That maybe we should consider.
Yeah, so, excellent, again, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just had a quick question. As part of that policy, did you deal with, you had talked a little bit, I think, about sick days and possibly vacation times. Do we have a policy for if you're here so many years? And
it's
do,
in the manual. Yes, it is. That's in the manual.
And it is a pooled model,
okay.
so they get X number of days off based on how long they've been here,
Right.
and that is your sick, that's your vacation, and that's your personal.
And they roll it all into one number. It's just easier to do that when you're really sick.
That was about 2 years ago we did that.
I don't know why the other towns don't do it. It's so simple.
What's Russell's last name again?
Olin. It's in the package. And then
Make sure you pronounce it correctly.
Olin. I'm doing Olin right.
How do you spell it?
BOLAND.
Tell them you're calling from the halls.
He's the town administrator from that town.
How I
Well,
get to UGA.
All right.
I think we'll wrap up your section. Thank you so much. Big round of applause.
It's a divorce, that's it.
Depends on how we try.
What do you mean, Adrian?
All right. And Jesse, are you here for us to, are we going to talk about your budget? I just losing track of my days. You're done. You just like to be here.
I just like being here.
All right, fair enough.
I think Bobby.
Yep, I have a couple things. The first thing I have is I got a letter from the state, Saturday. They don't have a date picked out for, the presidential primary, but they have told us that we have to have a sitting, the supervisor of the checklist, on October 30th. From 7 to 7:30, we are actually going to do it from 6:30 to 7:30 here. It will be in the paper, in a couple different papers, because they also told us it will be the last time anyone can change their party. So we were hit with that on Saturday, like, wow. So we're going to put it in a couple papers. They're still waiting to pick the date because they're watching what other states are doing. So we don't have an election calendar or anything, but just to let you know that we are going to be doing that on October 30th. Vilas.
That's at the town hall, sorry Bobby. That's,
Pardon?
where are you gonna be doing that?
We do it right here at the town offices.
Okay. Thank you.
And so I'm going to put it in a couple papers only because I need to get that information out. Because a lot of people, this happens every year, they forget to change back to undeclared. We can't do it for them just because they were that. When they have told themselves they've gone to an election and said, yes, I'm going to vote Democrat or I'm going to vote Republican, and then they forget to change back. So they go to another election and throw a fit, but I'm undeclared. No, you're not. So that people need to check the checklist.
Is that available?
Copy there at the town office.
Is that available online? Can I go out and see how it registered?
No. They had wanted to do that. You can see right here at the checklist that's
Okay.
down, it's available. And the second checklist is usually over at the town hall, but it disappears usually once a month.
Okay.
Because we do have to have two out there.
I have a question. Can that be put up on the town website? Would that be helpful?
You have to talk to the state.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I mean, that you're gonna be held in.
I'm going to be putting it on social media too. If the town wants to put it on the website, that's fine. And I'm going to be putting it in the paper to give you a session.
Doesn't look like you're ready
Yeah,
to
so
vote.
on the 30th, we would
Me?
do, apart.
Well, I got into a big fight with someone like 12 days after I moved up here about, I just wanted to register in the polling place because you can do that. But they made me go home and get like utility bills and stuff like that. I'm like, all I have to do is sign that and say,
Are you going to stay from that on?
Maybe not yet.
Yes, please.
I just want to make sure. The next thing is Lilas. We had one more wedding this Saturday. And then Sunday we'll meet, and next Wednesday we'll have JD out there to look at closing up the bells. And so we'll be working on getting it closed by the end of the month. We'll have a public meeting on the 28th. We are very fortunate that this gentleman here, Mr. Gordon here, started us a Facebook page. We found out that having a group site and having a Facebook page is two different things. And because of this Facebook page that he started for us, we already have 3 weddings booked for 2016. And it's taken me a while to understand the difference, because when you sit and look at the Violet's Pool group page, those that get on social media, you see 975 members. Wow, that's going out to a lot of people. You go to the Violet's Pool Facebook page that has 275 members, that's what's going out to people all over the place. It's a whole different system. The group is the 900 and some people that are, a lot of them not active. These active over in the Facebook page is going out. You're getting people that, oh, we didn't know there was a Violet's Pool and you had weddings there. So it's very exciting, and I really appreciate it. I still don't quite understand it all, because I mess up all the time, but he's on the page so he can message me when I mess up. So I'm learning. So I really do appreciate that. The board did meet and talked about who we're going to have for staff, or what we're going to do for staff. It is really important that as soon as possible we get the total numbers for Linda. We really need to sit down and work on a budget so that we can make some of these decisions. We do need to know, because I'm not sure how this works with the town, with guys who have like part-time during the winter, do you have to put that out as an advertisement every year? Is that what you do? Or do you just use the same people year after year?
It's the same people.
So my question is do we have to put out for the positions if we already have somebody that is agreed to work again another year?
I wouldn't think so.
Already filled.
They're already filled.
That was quite an argument with some old board members that said you have to do it. That's what the selectmen said. So now I'm asking the selectmen here.
This selectman wouldn't say so.
So let's repeat that entire question.
Okay, so let's say you have
Pose the
part-time.
question to us.
Do I have to make the people that are working there right now that want to work again,
Next year.
do I have to have them apply and go through the process again?
They would be at that point existing part-time employees.
Yes.
We did not cease their,
Right.
there was no contract that ended. There was no finality to it.
I mean,
So then
the
they still-
season's closed and there's no more work. But
Right.
that's the same thing.
But that
as the
doesn't mean the
season.
Violet's Pool is closed and it's
Right.
now going to reopen under new management or anything like that, so no,
Right.
there's no reason.
Right.
They don't get benefits or anything, right? So.
No.
No. Yeah, that would be, we're in agreement on that.
So we don't have to go through the process.
No.
Now, with that said, if it's somebody, let's say that one of those people does not wish to continue their job next year, they tell you in spring you want to get somebody else, then the select board, I think, would rightfully say, I think that we should open up this to applications and see if we can get the best person, and if existing people want to apply, they can, and like that, but
And we'll probably actually advertise for the part-time people that are lifeguards and everything every year, because that's quite a change always going on, and we can't really count on it. Our manager, though, has agreed that she would stay working.
okay.
And so we didn't want to go through that process and put it out there if we didn't have to.
I don't see the need for it.
I don't either.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, do we have anything else to cover?
Couple things. The 2007 Cruiser, I think Rogers has a few more pieces to take off of that, and it'd be basically ready to sell, or put out for a bid, I should say. If we're gonna do it, this is the time of year to do it, because it's four-wheel drive.
I'll give you 520.
I think that would be a little more value than the other one, though.
I think you're gonna have a lot more people, at least from Alstead, looking at muni bid next time you put something up there, $500.
Glenn, have we decided whether we're gonna pay mileage if they use their own rigs at this point?
I think that's a policy those guys in the.
We haven't finalized the policy yet, and I think we need to get something, do we start to draft something? Joel did do a draft or something. We need to address that. Could you put on your, in the minutes that we would like to discuss and approve a mileage program at our next meeting? What else have we missed?
So possibly by the next meeting, you could be able to let me know whether to throw that thing on municipal bid or not.
Yes, I think we should discuss the proposed mileage policy, and if we're in favor of it, I think we should vote and implement it. And then I think after that, we should discuss that one meeting.
Yeah. David doesn't want it anyway, so.
How bad is it?
No, it's not bad.
Well, maybe I will.
There you go. Oh, we can drive it. Bid on it.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe the fire department would. I mean, for $500.
Well, this is what we did last time, and that's how they got this last cruiser, was we did put it out for bid. We didn't get hardly anything for it last time, which was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and then we chose to say what department would like it. We actually did offer it to the fire department first, and then Ken did not want it, so we ended up offering it to the highway department. And that's how it became the highway department's vehicle. So that was how it went about with that one, because we wouldn't get enough money for it at that time.
Are we putting the cart before the horse here? That maybe we should be thinking about the departments first and selling it second rather than the other way around?
If there's a compelling need, I think we all recognize, well, first of all, I don't know if the departments, if we have a mileage policy in place, that's intended to replace a fleet car, number one. Number two, I don't know if any of the departments have thought about or considered the cost involved in refurbishing and then maintaining a vehicle. So, in a sense, it's not really, it's almost an expansion of the fleet, and I think that's got more financial.
My recommendation is to put it on the list and get rid of it.
Yeah. I think getting rid of our problem child is probably a good, beneficial thing, and if we can work through mileage, I think we'll be okay. We'll find out. It's something we can take a look at after we've been doing it for a while, and see if we can estimate what the cost of our mileage is.
And you can always turn down the bid.
Yep. Or bid $1 more.
Well, against yourself.
All right.
So I have one last thing. Last week we voted on this starting time for the highway department.
Yes.
Which turned into a nightmare in an email. I mean, we voted on it to implement it. Why didn't it happen? Or did it happen? Right?
You were waiting for the next pay period.
And this is the
This is the next, starting yesterday.
I wasn't privileged to the emails that went back and forth between you and Linda.
Okay.
I'm not sure where we were with that or who.
So when we left here, we had asked that
I had
that
shared your-
information be
yep.
passed on to
I
David.
passed on.
That's what we asked in the meeting. If it didn't make it to David, and if David still doesn't, does David know? Do we know where it is?
Well, I think it got relayed to Linda awfully good.
Right.
I shared with Linda what was discussed.
The email I got from her was rather
Yes.
pointed,
Yes.
and I weren't impressed at all. I mean, come on. If we make a decision, that's the decision.
Right. And decisions can always be brought up in public meeting, and we can be challenged on it.
We don't need to be challenged by our administrative assistant.
I would say that any citizen who wishes to.
If she was a citizen, it would be great.
Speaking very-
She's not a citizen of this town. The citizen just sat here and didn't challenge it during the meeting.
I honestly don't want to get into any discussion of anyone in particular. You know what I mean? But I think we do have to follow up and see where David's at, and if we need to make that phone call or a visit tomorrow morning, I'm good with that. Do we need to do
You
that?
should take a phone call, that's all. Go on your winter hours. I mean, you were here, Glenn, but did you see a problem with it?
The only thing I saw was the time, because when they're plowing, they normally come in early, about 3 o'clock in the morning. So at that time, you may have to make some adjustments when they start plowing.
But the plowing's gonna be different, they're gonna come in, they're gonna plow the storm. I'm talking about days that they're going to work in the dark.
Right, but
There's people driving by there, and this is where it came from, there's people driving by there, they see them looking out the window. I mean, come on.
the point is that if they start plowing at 3 and their hours are from 3 o'clock in the morning, their hours are from 7 to 3, they'll start plowing at 3, they won't go home earlier because they started earlier, so you're gonna be paying overtime.
Well, we
for
can
the
change
time.
that.
Absolutely, that's the whole key, is that a lot of times if a storm is coming in at, say, 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they come in at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7, whichever times you decide, and then they get the overtime afterwards. And all those little things, you gotta count those up, and that gives you a lot of money.
The
at the end of the
decision
year.
itself increases the opportunity for 1 extra hour of overtime per plow during storm.
For employee, the whole fleet.
Yes. So
Unless
how many
you say that you have so many hours if you're done plowing, go home.
And see, that's what they didn't do. That's
Why
what
can't we
they
say
said
that?
overtime.
I mean, that's
Well,
something.
we can. I'm just saying that if we go through a month and we've got 3 storms that occur, then we're gonna pay 1 extra hour per storm per day, let's say it's 3 days where people need to get out of the plow. How many plows are we putting on the road?
Well, we have all the employees coming when, so we got 5.
5?
Well, Randy, 5, 6.
Right. So it's a math problem. It's 5 times the average, or until each individual hourly wage, plus an hour, or times
Chris,
1.
Chris,
Five.
it's done.
you know, despite your face with that kind of a plant, I mean, it's the 40-hour week you should be looking at.
Exactly.
$5 an hour. I mean, you get hit with a massive amount of snow, and it's 1 hour. It's like, oh, time to go home.
I'm not
That's
suggesting,
not gonna fly.
I'm not
Right.
suggesting a change or anything. I'm just trying to say that there is a financial impact to bumping people out an hour during storms. That's it. So how do you counter it? You say, okay, then if you came in, you're going to leave an hour early.
Yeah.
Is it that simple? Is it like every other job?
What if they had 40 hours in on a Thursday, and there's nothing for them to do on that Friday?
Right.
For plowing, don't have them work that Friday.
Which I'm fine with.
I
So
would
maybe I
recommend,
wasn't understanding what you were
I
saying.
would recommend get some ideas together, sit down with David, and go over and see what you guys come up with. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of something he should be doing, right, as the supervisor, just figuring this stuff out.
I agree.
So I also have a question on your time, your 7 to 3:30, so you're asking them to take a half-hour lunch now?
No, 3.
It was 3,
You
because
said 3:30 in the minutes.
But I think you allowed the 3:30 for the, because we had discussion.
we talked about lunch,
lunch.
but
They don't
everybody
eat lunch.
told me they don't eat lunch.
Well, come on.
But by law,
Is there a law?
There is a law.
a half-hour lunch. So you either pay them for lunch, they get off at 3, or they get off at 3:30 and force them to take lunch.
I suspect that we may want to inquire as to the legality of what we're required by law to provide for a break in the middle of an 8-hour day. That's where that is going to be resolved.
I would
I
definitely.
think Bob looked
I
into
suspect
that.
the inclination is to stick with the 7 o'clock start for winter hours and then work out how we avoid racking up overtime. And if that means we cut people loose during the week, as we watch the weather on the new laptop we have down there and new internet access, then that's what we gotta do. And I don't think it's too much to ask a director of a department to be able to juggle that. Keep your overtime down.
So are the minutes correct or incorrect? Does that need to be changed?
They'll be
Is it separate?
clarified, we've already voted and approved those minutes,
To 3:30?
so they are what they are, but we'll have further discussion on that starting time. Further clarifications needed.
Well, I'm talking at the ending time, because as a citizen, when I hear they don't take lunch. I'm sorry. Do I need to take videos of them buying lunch or going to their home every time, at a certain time every day, taking their lunch? To make people, I mean, this has been going on for years and years and years. And they do take lunches, they do take breaks. I mean, I guess if it was just honest and upfront, I don't have a problem if you said, the town of Alstead is gonna pay you to have a half-hour lunch. I have a problem when they're saying, I don't take lunch. So I get off early.
Okay, well, the minutes don't discuss anything about lunch or breaks or anything else.
Well, if you look at
They
the
talk
policy,
about-
7 to 3:30.
They talk about hours and that's it.
Right.
So we will clarify that. The minutes are gonna stand because we all voted and approved them. I don't think either of us are inclined to reopen the discussion of whether we should approve the minutes.
We'll clarify.
We'll clarify and then we'll discuss that next week. And hopefully Joe will be there. Who will have all sorts of opinions on this, I'm sure.
So since we're on that subject, one more thing is that we do have a part-time employee that's getting very, very close to a full-time employee, looking at the 80 hours they put in again this time period. And so basically gonna be cutting it loose at the end of the year if it keeps up, so. Everybody have a plan for it, but I think you guys need to have him explain to you what his plan is. Because he is gonna be full-time.
Will that be part of, like, if you got a manager in here, would he be watching them? I mean,
Yes.
that's part of Dave's, job now, unless he really needed it.
Well, it's hard for him to keep track.
Everybody.
Yeah, it's hard for him to keep track of those hours, but there's a report that you guys can run that will show the amount of hours each employee has
Well, if they're punching in, why would it be hard to track the hours?
for him to track it.
For David to track it?
Yeah, because he doesn't have access to the report unless he calls them up and has them run that report.
Just for his workers'
You'd be
hours.
upset.
The total hours per year.
Chris,
Yes.
my apologies, as you couldn't pronounce my name last year, I couldn't spell your name. Laura, recorder.
Did I mispronounce it or did I just call you by the wrong name? I think it was,
Well, we're even now.
Yeah, fair enough. Let me see. Okay, so Rock and I are gonna go down and meet with David tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And we'll talk this through with him. All right, anything
I have
else?
a question. Did you follow up with the locks on the dam, like Horn Dam?
I'm gonna ask him that tomorrow, and I was wondering if, because John Mann left, didn't he?
Yeah, I was here.
Tom looked at it on Sunday, and all the boards were down,